Hey everybody, Liz here. I have an interesting and potentially troubling concept I want to talk to you about today. It's the drama triangle, the drama cycle. It's a little bit of psychology, but it will help with your manifestation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen and show you what the drama triangle looks like. Just a minute. Just a minute. Here we go. All right, finally. Finally, mama. All right. So here we go. Here's the drama triangle. I want to talk about this, and this might be a little bit longer, like 12 minutes, but here we go. So when you're working in relationship with families of origin or with your people, with your old clique of friends from school and so forth, there's some things that go on. And these are roles. These three roles that you see in this triangle: the rescuer, the persecutor, I call them the um the um the perpetrator or the bully sometimes, or the victim. These are all roles that people play when they don't have the emotional understanding, emotional maturity, and manage their emotions well. It's not people's fault because we never learned, we were never taught. Our parents, our families of origin didn't know either. So we weren't taught to kind of manage our emotions and regulate how we talk to each other. We just react like, I don't know, so many hyenas or yard dogs or something, so many hyenas, I don't know, just angry folks and just reacting to criticisms that come our way. So I want to talk about what the drama triangle is, what it means for you, why I'm talking about it, and then how you can use it for manifestations, but also how you can, once you understand the drama triangle with you and your people, you and your person, family, whatever it is, you can manage it much better, and you can decide to jump in for sport or fog and step aside if you want, and I'll explain what all that means. So when I do workshops and retreats, I'll actually have people come to the front who aren't too shy and don't mind sharing something about their lives that isn't that serious. And what I'll do is I'll have someone come into a triangle position, someone who wants to let us know in front of the group when they've played the rescuer role in relationships. And they'll have someone else come up and who wants to be the bully, and something they've done to bully someone in the past. Of course, we don't talk about serious trauma here. It's just a basic little example. Nothing too painful. Then I'll have someone come up and share about a time when we've been the victim or they've been the victim. So I will tell you that all of us, especially in our families of origins, people play in these roles. And you may notice as you listen to this talk, understand what I'm talking about. And we have all been in all these roles too. There have been times when I've been the victim, the bully, as I'll say, or the rescuer. And you cycle through them with your families. I'll give you a little example. I'm going to give some personal examples in this life. So there's times when we switch too, where you're the victim, but then you become the bully, and then someone's the rescuer. So in the case of my mom and her boyfriend and me, when I was pregnant with my first son, this was 30 years ago now, I excitedly told my mom that I was going to have a baby, that we were having a baby. And she said, "Oh, kids ruin your life. Is it still too late to have an abortion?" Well, as an expecting mother, I was affronted. I didn't talk to her for a year. I was so victimized and so harmed by what she said. I was flipped out. I couldn't believe it. And so I was the victim and she was the bully in that statement, right? But then the following year, guess what happened? Guess what happened? She told her knitting buddies, her knitting cohort, "My daughter doesn't talk to me. She never calls me. I just don't understand why." And her knitting buddies go, "Yep, kids these days, they don't respect their parents anymore." So now I'm the bully and she's in the victim role. See? And then her boyfriend, who's the rescuer, calls me and says, "Hey, hun, call your mother. Call your mother. She loves you. Call you. She's upset. You don't call her." He's from Long Island. And so, we get into these roles and they can certainly enrage us, but I want to point these out to you, explain them a little bit, and talk to you about what you can do about them. So you can actually look over your life and your families of origin, or your marriages, your people, your kids, your coworkers, and decide who's in these roles. Now, I do kind of feel like sometimes we're all wired to be victims at times, like, oh, the army's out to get me, all the people, the government, the bad guys are out to get me all the time. I think we're kind of wired for victimhood, and we need to take off that mantle, if you will, and be wired for sovereignty instead. But I do think we can be aligned to that. But here's the thing about psychology is that no one actually exhibits experiences or behaves in any type of psychological format that doesn't serve them in some way. So the victim has what we call secondary gains for being the victim. The prosecutor, the persecutor, the bully has reasons for being abusive that serve him or her. And the rescuer, the same. There's always a secondary gain. There's a reason for your psychology. You express no psychology unless you have a very good reason that you feel serves you, whether on a conscious level or a not conscious level. So I'm going to stop sharing for now. But so we've all been in all of these roles. And if you look at it, we can look at the secondary gains. And by the way, when I talk about the bully, I'm not talking about like sociopathic, narcissistic, or Machiavellian or psychopathic behavior. I'm actually just talking about your normal mean cruelness that families do to each other, right? Just the normal mean Uncle Bob who always is making fun of how you burnt the green bean casserole at Thanksgiving, and you do it every year, right? Remember you brought all those dogs home. Remember how you lost, you struck out in 6th grade, and they're still reminding you of all your, unhappy memories and stuff. I'm talking about that normal kind of cruelty, not the sociopathy, but it can be that as well. But I'm actually just talking about normal, icky human relationships. So let's talk about secondary gains. So let's talk about the victim first. We talk about victims a lot. Why would a victim want to be the victim? I mean, who wants to be a victim, right? Well, when I do the workshops, people come up with the reasons why they felt they wanted to stay the victim. And they came up with things like, I get sympathy. I get to whine, moan, and complain. I get to tell my story. I get to suck up all the energy in the room. I mean, I get to take everyone's attention. I get to be an energy vampire. They don't say that, but that's kind of what's happening. They might admit that they don't have to take responsibility. They get free stuff. They get sympathy. They get empathy. They get help, right? They get rescued, and they don't have to do any work. So these are the reasons why. Now, if you feel like a victim, you can hate on me in the comments if you want, but there is some reason why that you just sit in the victim mode, if you'll be honest with yourself. I'm just saying, I've been there too. Now, what about the bully? Why would a bully want to be a bully? Well, perhaps the bully has some underlying lack of self-confidence and needs to find him herself powerful. And so they want to have the power and control. And they get to also feel that they're right, and they get to have power over somebody. So they get this false sort of control and power over someone when in fact they should really work on their own sovereignty, and they're lacking self-confidence. But who cares about that? They're being the bully right now. But it may be true that they're covering for something. Also, class clowns, by the way, do the same thing. So let's talk about the rescuer. Now, myself, I've been in rescuer careers most of my life. The rescuer, what's the secondary gain for us rescuers? This can often be considered the good role, like, well, we're the good people. It's not true. We actually often want to rescue because we want to feel good. It makes us feel good to help. We also get to feel correct. We get to feel right about what we're doing to help. We get to have a little control over the situation. We get the attaboys on the back. And but also perhaps instead of looking inward and taking care of ourselves, we want to rescue others. So we focus outward instead of focusing inward. I have lots of stories I will not share today, but about people I know that have done that. So in other words, there's some good things about being in these roles at times, right? Because if you act a little bit of the victim, you offer someone a chance to help, for sure. But they can also have the dark side of the secondary gains, that where you're not actually doing your inner work, you're just acting out. So the challenge with this, now that you know about it, is you can look at your own life. Where have you been these roles with your people, and what to do about it? So my teacher, Alberto, used to tell us like 15 years ago, well, if you know you're in the drama cycle, let's say you go home for Thanksgiving and the people are doing the same old grousing that they've been doing for years, same thing, the same old crap they've been saying for years. You can choose to jump in for sport and go, oh yeah, well, another thing, that team sucks. Or like, you could never play football. You remember you threw that aerobie that one time and you busted your back? You can't catch for crap. Whatever the criticism is, you can jump in for sport. I did it recently with my own mother because she did something, but the point is, when you do it, when you jump in the argument and criticize back or defend yourself or jump into the fray, jump into the verbal fight, the argument, if you will, the drama, you're doing it consciously by choice because you find it delicious. You're not doing it as a reaction, just as a reaction to defend yourself, and it just comes out of your mouth. You do it from a conscious decision to, you know what? That feels fun right now. I have a client who does it all the time. She jumps in with her parents. She jumps in with her parents all the time just because she enjoys it so much. It's delicious for her to give her parents what for. But you can also choose to step out of it. And it's a psychological technique called fogging. I'm going to talk to you about it and how to do it. Fogging is a way to step out of the game. You step out of this. So in other words, you'll go back to your family of origin, your high school clique, your family, this or that, your partner, and they'll invite you to be in the victim role, or they'll invite you to be in whatever role, because they're being the victim, or they're being the bully, or they're being the rescuer, right? You don't have to jump in. You don't have to jump in and play. Now, the risk here, or the challenge first, is that The reaction of your people when you don't jump in and assume your role, if you will, is they'll act up, they'll act out. They might come on the attack a little stronger. They get upset that you're not playing your role. It's kind of probably all unconscious on their part, but they're just wondering, why aren't you here? What the heck's wrong with you? You're not your usual self. What the hell's happening? So you might get a more negative reaction, but it will fade because they'll find someone else to play the role. But at first it might be a little harder. So it gets worse before it gets better, usually. But here's how you do it. Fogging entails if someone comes at you with criticism, you simply stop, think a minute, and decide, is there any part of the criticism that could be true? And then you go ahead in a calm manner. Now, wait a minute. In a calm manner, you admit the truth that might be true. So let's say your boss is saying, you're always late. You could say, is that true? Sometimes I am. Yep, I am sometimes late. That is true. Or you could be right. Or you might be right. That's sometimes true. And then what you do, you might not be able to do this with your boss, but your family of origin or what have you, you can simply say, that is correct. Like my mom used to say to me, you never call me, you never call, you never call. Like, well, mom, I'm calling you now. It's what's going on in my mind. But I can say something, and then she'll cause me a bad name or something like that. And I'll say, hey, mom, that's right. Sometimes I don't call. That's the fogging part where you actually diffuse a situation, because if you admit the part that's true, you don't take on all of it. And I'm not talking about fawning and being a doormat or a panty waste and just going, yeah, you're right. I just suck. I'm a worm. I'm just talking about calmly and neutrally saying, that might be true. That's right. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes I am sometimes late, or sometimes I do dress sloppily, or sometimes I don't call you. And then what I do with my own people, you do need to train your people how to treat you, and you should always be treated with respect and honor. Or maybe I would advise to do something like this or other psychological techniques. But anyway, after you do that, you just admit the little piece in a neutral way that you can accept as true about what you've been doing. You don't have to be defensive, and you don't have to be critical back. You just escalate. You can actually, in a way, be the better person and admit the little piece that's true. And then here's what you do. You calmly then state your piece. You can say, yes, that's right, person. I don't always call you. And that's because sometimes I feel that you get really ugly with me and you call me names and it's not pleasant. I'm going to ask that you stop doing that. And I don't want to have conversations with you unless you can be respectful and kind. So you state your piece again in a calm, neutral manner. But then what you do, step 3, is you leave. So if I'm on the phone, I'll say, hey, so-and-so, I love you very much. Listen, gotta go. Bye. Hang up. I don't let them complain, argue, whine, moan, and complain. I don't let them actually speak back. I calmly admit what's possibly true. Like, you might be right. I often don't call you. Here's why. I'm going to ask for respect from now on. But listen, I got to go, so I'll talk to you later. And then I have the boundaries where with this specific person in my life, I won't talk to them for a month. If they call me a bad name again, I won't call them for 2 months, and then 3 months, and then 6 months. And then after a year, I start the clock over. I always am open to relationship, especially with parents, families of origin, and stuff like that. So you can state what's a little bit true, what feels true to you. State calmly the kind of behavior you'd like to ask from them, right? And then you leave. Now, it's true, you may never get the behavior you want. You can with manifesting. I can talk about that in another video, but you can get it with manifesting. They may not react the way you want, but at least you've spoken your truth and you've gotten out of the situation. Again, jump in for sport consciously as a choice if it's delicious to you. By all means, you're the boss, but you can also gently step out and then leave the situation. And that leaves the person diffused. They have nothing against you. They've accused you of something. You've partially admitted the parts that you feel could be true. And then you've left. You've stated your piece and left. And they have the choice to actually treat you with honor or not. They might not. They might find someone else to get involved and criticize you and gossip about you. But this is a way to step out of that drama triangle. So why am I talking about this on a coaching and manifesting channel? Well, if you're aware of this dynamic, you can work with your people. So here's some things you can do. You can talk to them in spirit, in energy world, as I say. You can actually imagine having a visualization where you're talking to them about these things and speaking your truth and asking to be treated or respected in an honorable way. And then your future conversations may go better. And you can manifest more clearly without being triggered, because it's really good if you want to manifest your people, like people are roles or players in your play. Okay, so if your daughter is acting out, but you'd like her to be more respectful to you, or your mother, or you're this or you're that, your Uncle Bob, somebody, grandma is behaving kind of badly toward you or others or your children or something like that. You can have an energy conversation. You feel better and you're learning to set your own boundaries and treat yourself with respect and personal love. And then from that non-triggered state where you're not so mad at them and her and him and them and her and Zims, or you can actually manifest what you want from them better. Where you're writing affirmations like, I get along with my mom really well. We have great phone conversations. We're both so funny. We make each other laugh. Instead of God damn it, fuck it." So you can think about your situations and your relationships more calmly, perhaps. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. I have I've explained this in brief to clients and they go, ah, and they understand what's going on when they go home for Thanksgiving or go home for Christmas and the crazy that's going on. And their parents, they can think about it with some empathy and compassion because their parents never learned. Your parents didn't often probably didn't know these things, likely. Their parents didn't, and their parents didn't. And so here you now get to have develop some emotional maturity through this channel and through many other sources. Develop some maturity so that you can act and manifest out of a from a neutral space. So that's all I have today, but I wanted to love on you today talking about that drama triangle. So take care and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.